Hello, hello. I am Kaylani, and this is James.
What up?
And this is Delightfully Dysfunctional. Welcome to Delightfully Dysfunctional, a podcast about navigating the emotions of the human condition and the challenges that come with it. I'm Kaylani Persian Mason, a psychotherapist and life coach with James Timmons, an ever-curious human. This is not a replacement for mental health therapy. Please seek out mental health care if that's what you're needing. This is an opportunity for self-healers to dive deep and understand more about themselves. Thank you for joining us, and I'm excited today. This has been actually a topic we're going to be going into that we've wanted to for a while, and it's about men and vulnerability. So we're going to let that simmer for a second while we catch up. But I wanted to off the bat be like, I'm excited for this topic. But yeah, let's see. I don't know. What can we catch up on? What's going on in the world? I was going to say a really depressing news story, and that's not the angle.
Oh, just say it.
No, it was about, what's that guy? Kevin Spacey.
What happened with Kevin Spacey?
Well, he was like accused of a bunch of like sexual assault stuff. Yeah. And I did believe it. The charges were dismissed today.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know. I haven't followed the story at all, so I don't know enough information to probably have a super strong opinion. Mm-hmm. I'm going to assume that the law prevailed there, knowing that is not always the case. But that will be my assumption because I want to be honest about not kind of being ignorant really about the full breadth of the story and what happened. But I did think about, wow, especially when I think about like the Johnny Depp scandal and everything that happened there, there's a real, that's a vulnerable situation for men to be in, and like men in the public eye. There was so much like cancel culture and accusations and how quickly people believed it before being curious, I guess. Like... Yeah. And I was one of them. I actually thought that like, oh, I hadn't followed it. So I thought, oh, he's probably like locked up somewhere. I didn't know.
Yeah. Well, and like when you are accused of that, you become crucified because it's so unacceptable. And it rightfully so. It should be societally. It's such an evil. Yeah.
Yes. But unacceptable.
And so, but yeah, like again, even when it's really difficult, like it's important to like withhold judgment until like they have gone through like the trial, because our legal system is very, very messed up and corrupt. But the one good part is that you're innocent until proven guilty, Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times people are falsely accused of things, and the public will just automatically convict them in their mind.
Yeah.
So, because Kevin Spacey's career has already been destroyed, and so you're probably not going to hear. Like, I didn't hear that he was exonerated of all those charges. Mm-hmm. That's the right word. Yeah. And so I mean, because hopefully, if he is truly innocent, then he can restore his career, and things will just be like all will be forgiven. But there's so much venom out there that they'll probably say things like, well, it's because like it's a cover up. Like I still believe that he did what they said he did, things like that.
Yeah. The opinion has already been soured so much.
But then me personally, I still don't really want to form an opinion because this is the first time hearing about it. And I personally canceled him in my mind because of what I heard. And, so it's just really...
I don't think it helps either that the roles that he's really done well in are usually like kind of creepy asshole
like American Beauty where he sleeps with a teenager.
Yeah, like it doesn't help that like he's really good at being like the kind of a suspicious, mysterious bad guy. Yeah. Or like there's a lot where he starts out being like a good character, and then you find out. Except the one movie where that isn't. There's probably more than one, but the one that stands out is Pay It Forward, which was a very sweet.
I never saw
movie. Oh, it's really good.
My favorite role that he was in was in The Usual Suspects. You ever see that?
I don't think I did.
It was great. I don't want to. If I tell you what his character was, it'll ruin the movie.
Hey, don't tell me. Oh, I like that card counting one.
Oh, I never saw that either.
I don't remember what it was called. But yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
Made me want to be a card counter.
Yeah, he was also in Glengarry Glen Ross, which as a realtor, that's like an iconic movie. Oh. The opening scene. But yeah, it's a stupid movie. But yeah, Kevin Spacey, he's pretty iconic in the 90s and early 2000s, but yeah, whatever. So
whatever. I know that was really random. I was just I don't know. That was like a news thing that popped up this morning and what was on my mind, I suppose.
Yeah.
Random.
Well, what's new in my life?
Yeah.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah, what's that? Tell me.
Just kidding. Is I've been binge watching The Office.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I had waited obviously like over a decade to jump on that trend.
Oh, you hadn't seen it at all?
I'd never seen it. Yeah.
I also waited until COVID, and
Okay.
that's when I binge watched it with Zach. But yeah, so you tell me more then. This is your first experience.
Yeah,
with
because
The
over the
Office.
years, everyone has always told me that they were surprised that I had not seen it because my humor is very similar, and so they always thought I would like it. But then because I would always try to watch from the first season, and it's like kind of hard. It's
I
just
felt
pure
that's-
awkwardness.
Yes,
So then
I felt that too. It was hard for me to keep going.
Yeah, but so I started on season 2, and I love that show. It's like improv genius. Like I think the most underrated actor in that whole show is Jan, because she plays that role so well that it's so believable, and she has such cringy moments.
Okay, now wait. Actually, I do because it's been a while since I watched it. Is Jan the lady who loves cats, or is she the big lady who's got the like curly hair?
No, she was Michael's girlfriend.
Oh my god,
his boss.
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
So there's this part where like
gosh.
she's listening to a CD of like her assistant, and she's like all into it, and then she starts dancing, and she grabs Jim's hand and like tries to dance with him, and he's just like,
"What's going on?"
Yeah, it's
here?
hilarious.
Yes.
That part is like, because you could tell that everyone in that situation in that room, she was doing everything she could to make them laugh and be uncomfortable, and they had to stay in character. I would love to see like the outtakes of that specific scene, because I watched it just like dying laughing. Yeah.
I wish there was like an adult improv class in town.
We should start one.
How does one do? I've never been to an improv class. I don't think I can.
Neither
I don't know
have
if I'm an authority.
I had these ideas because I've always wanted. I used to do comedy videos for my business, and I always thought it'd be funny to have an improv group that I could like use for that. Because like all you do is take a situation and then but like
basically we should just watch a few episodes of Whose Line Is It Anyway, and then like run with those ideas. Did you ever watch that?
Yeah, those guys are amazing.
I loved that.
But those guys
show.
are so next level though. Like
They are.
in order to have good improv,
yeah, you're right.
You
We're
have
not
to
ready
be like
for
a
that.
truly like witty genius, to make it
Wow.
entertaining. But I feel like we
might be backing off this idea
No,
now.
no,
I don't know if I'm a witty genius.
I feel like you and I could probably like do well with it, but like the problem is when you invite people who are not all that funny.
Yeah, you have to be yes and. You've got to yes to and buy into it, and then like add on to the idea.
My kids I feel like they would do really well with improv because they have these powerful imaginations. And my son Judah, like I'll just start coming up with like a scenario that I think is funny, and he'll sit there and like the whole time, and he'll add to it and stuff, and I'm like, you are gonna be a comedic genius.
Well, they do have like kid improv in town.
Yeah,
So you
and
should
kids
get 'em
are just
signed up.
naturally good at improv because they can just run with their imagination.
Yeah, they're like go. They're never like no.
Yeah,
that's
and see,
not what happened.
Why do most adults abandon that? Like you shy away from your imagination when, or no, it's not that our imagination becomes like an evil source of like toxic thoughts.
Yeah,
because like,
our imagination is just like it's also rooted in reality because it's like go to work, pay bills,
Yeah.
mow the lawn.
well, because like for my years of self-sabotage, I use my imagination to think of the worst case scenarios, and I had these really creative, like awful traumatic situations that I would imagine. So then, yeah, I learned like recently to redirect it for creative things, you know?
Yeah. I mean, this isn't about imagination, I guess. It's just about like a mindset shift for me of really trying to lean into things that are fun. And I've realized, I don't know, like a lot of there were fun moments of my childhood. Don't get me wrong. I feel like maybe I've given a wrong perspective about my childhood when I talk about like where I grew up being rated the worst place to live and such. But like I had a lot of fun moments as well. But there was a lot of hard work just because you're living on a farm and it takes more work to like survive when it's 30 below. So I feel like I really have to try to infuse fun into my life now. And that sounds so weird and silly, but like things like the podcast or things that I choose to take on, I really sit and evaluate like, is this fun? And can I like internally maintain the feeling of fun?
Yeah.
Because that is such a better fuel than like, I don't know, like feeling obligation. And I want more fun in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to incorporate fun also, but just like, yeah, my entire perspective, like every part of life is a game.
Yeah,
you know?
Even the responsibility pieces or the things that do feel like obligations. I think it's good to view it that way.
Yeah, where I mean, like, because when you run into like financial problems and you view it as like a math game, then you're like, okay, well, let's see, where can I come up with this money? You know, things like that. And because if you can emotionally detach from scary things and treat it as as a game that's like a problem solving game, then you are a lot more fearless. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, you think of more of like a growth mindset about it, problem solving, and I think that can come when your anxiety is lower too. And so a lot of people, you know, you talked about kind of like a toxic mindset, but if you are having anxiety, that makes it difficult when your automatic thought is to catastrophize.
Yeah.
And so, but I mentioned this in our, I think like how to change how you think episode, or we were talking about like CBT thoughts, but a practice that I've done now, and I'm not sure if this is something that would help everyone. I do mention it to clients, but it really kind of depends on how much of a catastrophizer you are, I suppose. I really try to actually form a thought of what the worst case scenario would be if I'm feeling nervous about something. Because a lot of times I just can pause on the feeling of it being so bad and not formulate what it is that I think would really happen. And then I'm like, okay, well, if that happened, I would still survive. Or I have examples of people who've survived that. Or like, you know, it would be hard for the moment, but there is a continuation of time in life, and that can help too, just kind of putting it in perspective.
Yeah, totally.
Anyways, that was such a weird
opener.
I know.
That's what people tune in for, though, to hear.
Yeah, but they're here to get some laughs too, and I feel like you need to pick up the pace, sir. You're the joke. I don't sign up for being funny. That's not my bit.
Here's the joke.
Improv now.
What would Princess Diana be doing if she were alive right now?
I don't know.
She'd be trying to get out of her coffin.
Oh, what?
It's like if she all of a sudden became alive in this moment.
That was not even a great
in her situation.
Okay.
She would be trying to get out of her coffin, probably like just a bunch of bones. That joke is hilarious. I don't
know. No. Okay. Like if I could hit the soundboard, crickets. That's what I'd be. Chirp, chirp, chirp.
Oh.
Sorry, man.
I can tell people are probably right now.
Everyone
they're
is
still on the floor laughing.
Everyone who's listening.
If you're listening in your car,
I'm the minority here.
You're probably pulled over right now, just doubled over with laughter. I can feel that. I can see into the future.
I can feel that.
So you're welcome for that.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Now that you're recovering, now that you're recharging.
So glad we could give you that really funny, lighthearted moment, folks. We're talking about the sex scandal with Kevin Spacey and then Princess Diana Bones. What is this?
Yeah.
What is this?
I got another one. Why didn't JFK Jr. take a shower before he got on his plane?
I don't know.
Because he figured he'd wash up on shore.
That one's a little bit better, even though it's dark. I'll take that one.
Yeah, I have a lot of dark jokes.
dark, but that one landed.
I
a
know
bit
some
better.
racist jokes. Should I say some racist jokes?
Oh gosh, no,
Okay,
we're
okay.
shutting this down.
Okay,
Go back
okay.
to being not funny. I don't know.
Sorry, I'm Asian though, so I can say racist jokes. So here's one. I'm just kidding.
Here's one.
No.
Oh dear.
Anywho, so we're talking about several ways to be a sexy man, right?
Several ways to be a sexy man.
Number 1, CrossFit.
Oh my gosh. We're talking about men vulnerability.
Yeah, same thing.
Same thing. And I think that this is a really good topic because this is a time in history where we're seeing, I think, more men who are like wanting to break that mold or that kind of societal norm of what a man should be. Do you feel like that's something that you've had to mentally break through, or is that something that just naturally you didn't prescribe to, like the societal norm of, like, I don't know, more stoic and not showing vulnerability and all of that?
I don't know, because the more that I've been vulnerable, I know that culturally it's more acceptable for men to be vulnerable, but there's still like a labeling and stigma with it, because me being vulnerable, other men will kind of give me feedback that that's like feminine, that's not a manly thing, you know? And so then I
like, what will they say? Like, you've gotten actual feedback?
well, okay, yeah. I've gotten mostly positive feedback, but that's been from women, and that they are appreciative that to see a man be vulnerable, and but like the guys, I feel like we don't have much. We don't have a lot of male listeners, because I mean, we can look at that demographic in our
Can we? How do we know that?
in well, it's like our TikTok and Instagram audience, stuff like that.
Okay.
But I mean, that's not really all that important. But like, just like friends who just give me their honest feedback. I can't remember exactly how it's been phrased, but it's kind of along those lines of like, James, you're on a podcast where you talk about your feelings, you know, and like, it's almost like a mocking, like,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm like,
Well, and didn't a friend say something to you once, like, you're becoming a liberal because you talk about your feelings?
Yeah, that's the one. And I'm like, no, it hasn't changed my voting or anything. And but it definitely has. It completely eradicated like my tribalism that I used to subscribe to, because I'm a lot more like open-minded and curious about other people, and I want to like understand people more. And so I just think that it's
So it's kind of a bit of both for you then.
Yeah.
Like, there were some intentional pieces, but then there's some that I think are just you, James, right?
Yeah. But I don't think I don't feel more feminine for opening up and sharing like my experiences. I think I feel more human, you know? And so my personal goal is to encourage and like sort of like blaze the trail for men to be vulnerable, and for it not to be stigmatized as like, you know, you're feminine by doing so, because like my sons need a space to be vulnerable too, and that will create more confidence and safety in them, where they can lean into like their masculinity and really celebrate who they are, you know. And because masculinity has become, like, since the beginning of humankind, like, stoicism and like suppression, and you can't show your like your feelings, whatever. But
and I don't think like they didn't even have the tools to like understand their feelings either. Like, it was such a shamed thing or beaten out of them. And when I say them, I'm kind of thinking like generationally, several generations back, or how men have kind of been raised up until recently.
Well, and like it's almost been like you're weak if you pay attention to your
Right.
feelings. But I absolutely disagree with that.
Yeah.
I think the strongest people are the ones who lean into those feelings to figure out where they're coming from, and then to deal with it. Because like the best thing you can do about like feelings that hurt are to heal from them, to get to
If
the
you don't process them, I think you end up projecting them. And
Yeah.
a lot of us have examples of people in our lives who did not process things well. And then
Yeah.
you see them, with a lot of really maladaptive and maladaptive just meaning like unhealthy and not productive means of being with other people,
Yeah.
of interacting with other people. And I've said this before, but I'll just keep saying it over and over again. Like, it scares the shit out of people to be vulnerable. So isn't it a brave thing when someone can do that? When there is that that softening and that bravery to say what's really going on inside? And I think there can be a bad reputation. There are people who kind of stay stuck in that victim mentality or like too focused on their past and like, woe is me. And that's not what I'm promoting when I say vulnerability. Vulnerability, like there's a place for that spot, but you don't want it to, it's a pit stop. You do not want to live there. Your life is in your hands, despite what your upbringing was and the influences of it. It's sorting through that and then moving through to the other side where you really do have your hands on the steering wheel and you can say, oh, I used to do this in this situation. Now I realize I need to calm myself before I can engage in that conversation or treat people this way. Like, you have to bring that insight into your life and integrate it into just improving your goals or the relationships you have with people. And anyways, sometimes I think that vulnerability or the idea of sharing your emotions gets this reputation of like someone who automatically stays in this pit stop of woe is me. And that's not, I want to make a distinction of that not being what I'm describing or what I think is healthy.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm reminded of this experience that I had when I was at the center in Edmonds, where because men, I feel like when they are afraid to be vulnerable, it's almost a form of people pleasing because they're afraid of what other people are going to think if they are vulnerable. But there was this, they would split the men and the women up like a couple times a week. And we went to, it was called John's group because the counselor there who led the group, his name is John.
No surprise.
And so I remember he passed around this, I don't know if I've shared this. He passed around this little booklet of index cards, and then to each, there's like 20 of us guys. And so you got, when the index cards were in your hand, then you had to pick on each one of the, there's like 5 index cards, and on them were very general, basic emotions. It said sad, happy, scared, angry. And so I remember my first day there, I got the cards, and then so what you're supposed to do is pick 2 of the feelings that you're feeling in that moment. And I said, oh, I'm not really feeling any of these. I'm a little nervous and like, I'm a little like depressed. And he goes, so you're sad and scared? I was like, no, I'm not scared or sad. I'm nervous. And he goes, no, those fall into those categories. And what he was trying to do is for us to like not use euphemisms, and like it was like it like really pushed us to be to like work that vulnerable muscle, you know. And what happened, like every person went through, and like you see these big burly dudes saying, I'm scared and I'm sad, you know, which is so weird to see. And then like and then after we all went through, then we all like broke the ice with that, and there was so much like healing and beautiful conversations that happened with a group of men, all because John was like pushed us to like lean into that vulnerability. And so like that's something I've always wanted to like implement on our podcast, like how are we feeling, and like
we could totally do that,
but to not use euphemisms,
Have you ever seen something called an emotion wheel? I'll show you a picture, but I think it really ties in with what the exercise that you did. I use this with clients who are kind of struggling maybe with how to identify their emotions, or maybe they're wanting a starting place for how to start journaling. And it really branches off of kind of the core emotions of, that you listed: anger, sadness, joy, and then like all of the other words. Like, what are other words for anger? I'm furious, I'm enraged, I'm irritated. It gets more specific. But I think there's a lot of people who don't really even know how to answer the question, how are you feeling? Partially, like tagging on to the last episode we just recorded about social media and just phone use. If you're constantly distracted, or you're so keenly aware of your uncomfortable emotions and running and hiding from them, then you don't really get to a point of actually naming, labeling, processing through it. You just know how to numb and escape.
Yeah. I love that. And it's like, so when you're afraid to really like name your emotions, then the question you have to ask is, well, why are you afraid to voice how you're feeling? What is causing that like self-consciousness? Because a brave person, and I'm appealing to men listening, the 3 men listening.
Yeah. We hope there's more.
I mean, I like the ladies. So
oh God.
I'm just kidding. No, a brave person would have the courage to name their feelings. Like, okay, so I'll just be that brave person right now. Like, it's gonna do the exercise.
Yeah.
So right now I'm feeling happy and I'm just feeling happy.
You're just feeling happy?
Yeah.
That's not very vulnerable to just say you're happy, but that's okay.
Let me say I'm feeling scared.
Well, no, I mean, that's genuine to how you're feeling right now. Yeah.
So,
I'm not a man. I'll talk like this though. So I'm feeling real vulnerable today.
We'll put Optimus Prime filter over your voice. I am feeling.
It's as low as I can go. I think I'm feeling really good. The podcast days are always really fun because it's a guaranteed time when I know that there's going to be depth in conversation, and that's invigorating for me. And even though my day in therapy is filled with deep conversation as a therapist, this is a reciprocal back and forth, right? And that's fun for me. But I also, there's a bit of overwhelm too that I'm feeling.
Oh, you're using euphemisms. So scared?
Oh, scared. There we go. Thank you. Yeah, scared. Yeah. Scared. Yeah. Sure.
But
I was trying to see if there was if I would describe it in other words, but I think that if we were to narrow it down to that, just in kind of just keeping up with stuff sometimes, I think I've been self-reflecting. I always try to say, like, as a therapist, I am also a flawed human, just like everyone else. I'm here along for the ride, know?
But you're less flawed though. I'm just kidding. You're perfecter.
No. But I definitely practice what I preach. I really try to. So in that self-reflection and like figuring it out, I've really evaluated, oh, you know what? You need to do this and this and this to start taking care of yourself better, to start managing this or that. So it's like a scared overwhelm of just, it's time to have better habits.
Yeah.
Knowing that you're on the cusp of that.
Yeah. I guess I'm gonna borrow that too.
Okay.
Because there is, and I will just say I am scared, but like to make it more specific. Yeah, I guess there's a little bit of fear that I have reached this place of healing and accomplishment that I like deep down I still have that fear that I'm gonna F it all up. And
kind of the internal place that you found.
But then the comfort though is like I can draw you a roadmap of how I got here. So then, and whereas before it was on accident, I wouldn't be able to tell you how to get there. And so that's the comforting part because now I'm like, well, James, and I'll say this out loud to myself like I do. I talk to myself and I'll say, just, do exactly what you've been doing and don't stop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it's an important thing. I remind myself there's never going to be a moment where I think, oh, I've arrived.
Yeah.
It's this process. This is all still like a part of life, and it still has these beautiful pit stops even within the struggle. And it was our friends, I'm going to give them a shout out, Matt and Rachel Hammer. They said something once, like, the best you can hope for is better problems. And so, like, there's always going to be
absolutely
hiccups in your life, but are you preparing yourself or, putting in the effort so that hopefully that is a better problem than what you're currently facing? And I love what you said, like, kind of maybe defining a new baseline, but within that you're expecting that there'll still be highs and lows, but at least your baseline is at a comfortable place.
Exactly. And I never thought I would ever say this, but I'm thankful to have experienced the horrible process that I went through.
Oh, I want to sit with that for a second, because I think that's a really powerful place to be, right? To say, I'm grateful for that because of where I am now, but like, you can also at the same time say, I don't want to revisit it anytime soon. I don't want that again, but there's lessons and value in that. How does it feel to be there?
It feels great. I have a billion times more wisdom today than I did. But because I had a recent issue come up in my business world, and when life was flying high and great, it would have stressed me out. I would have lost sleep over it. Yeah. But I don't care at all about this issue now. Like, it doesn't faze me at all because I'm like, well, it wouldn't even be the worst thing that happened, this week.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. But you have like a different context of,
so I'm like, if I could survive all that, then something but it's funny because when this issue came up, like, some of the other realtors that were helping me were like so afraid of it. And I'm like, dude, like, I went, but I'm thankful to have experienced, because it created like a big resilience.
That was a word that was like in my head when you were describing that, just like the knowledge and confidence in yourself to work through hard moments, and that they're temporary. Yeah.
And then I shared this reel yesterday actually on my Instagram where Steve Harvey says, did you know that you can mess your life up? You can jack your life all the way up and still turn around and get it right. And so,
that's such a good reminder for people.
Yeah. It's like, and he goes on later to say, it's never over. Yeah. It's not, if you woke up this morning, it's not over. And so and then I'm here to tell you that there's a patience that only can come through rebuilding your life, because you want the breakthrough and you want things to turn around instantly, but they won't, and nobody's going to come save you. So the only thing you can do is just take the steps and eventually journey your way into the life that you want. And
it makes me think, I'm kind of taking it to a sad place. I'm not meaning to. Okay. I don't feel sad when I talk about it anymore, but it makes me think of Zach's dear friend, Andy. I was close with him at one point too, but we had really lost touch for several years, but always, held him in my heart, as someone I enjoyed and cared for. And I have spoken to him about him, on the podcast before, because he took his life, I think it's been 5 or 6 years now.
Yeah, I remember
6
that.
maybe. And I know for him, he felt like this is the worst thing. I don't know how to come back from this. There'd been certain circumstances, and he really felt like there's no way that this could get better, right? Yeah. And I wonder what would have happened if he had worked through that and found a place where it was better, but maybe it didn't look like the way he had thought it was going to look. Yeah. And honestly,
I feel like when you reach a point of rock bottom and you survive, it could be argued that you are a survivor of suicide, because, a lot of people, when your life is just completely dismantled by my own doing, there's a grief, there's a complete shift in your
Huge
worldview.
grief.
And like that, because you had envisioned this one specific life that was non-negotiable. You didn't think that you were going to not have that was not going to be available to you. So when all of a sudden you find yourself that it is not available to you, most people are like, well, then what's the point of living? And to just hang on and see what's on the other side of that, when I could not have ever imagined that there was ever going to be anything positive to come out of this, and I still like,
I mean, that's not to say that you would sign up to make this, right? Like, that's not the same thing that you're saying.
Yeah. And I still loved my previous life, and I was happy to not have, I would happily have not experienced this, and I would happily not have attained this wisdom,
I would happily be ignorant.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but I did, and I'm in a place of peace, and it forced me to go through inner healing that I never would have dealt with.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
I think it's really cool that you get to be a role model for what that looks like for people, because it can be hard to find what that looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we're talking about vulnerable men.
Well, we are.
I guess I am
and
being
we
vulnerable.
still are. We still are. You are. Yeah. You're the specimen here. I think it allows you to have more authentic relationships when you can be vulnerable.
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly like, because right now it is non-negotiable for me, like, to suppress things or hide things. I will not. Like, if somebody's coming to me and I can tell that they're being phony and they're like hiding things or whatever, I have an allergic reaction. And I'm like, I don't really want, you're not invited to my new life, It's like,
you can be more aware of it when you're not participating in the bullshit anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so common, but it's like, it's so refreshing though when you're around people who want to be vulnerable and want, like, to just share their life, and and a lot of people lately, or a few people lately, have really come to me because they feel like it's safe to be vulnerable, and and I love that, because like that's like my new hobby almost,
Yeah, embracing vulnerability, I think it's a real act of empowerment, because it shows this strength in being oneself, even when it goes against social expectation. And even when it's hard. And I guess, this is actually, my brain just opened up a whole new door of tangents. Here we go.
Let's go.
I think that our mind in general really struggles with the dichotomy of different aspects of ourself, and really being able to view it in one way. Like, oh, yesterday I really wanted, I felt this way about something. Now today I feel that way. And we don't realize that we can be both at the same time. Like, I can be, perfectly imperfect and beautifully flawed. I can be, I can love this person and also feel a lot of pain about what happened with them. You can feel both of those things at the same time. And when it comes to vulnerability, it's like this radical ideal that you can be male vulnerability. You can be masculine and strong, and you can also have this ability to be vulnerable, and that can be integrated, and it doesn't shift who that person is. This is their oneness being integrated, where so many men, I think, feel that they have to cut off or amputate that part of themselves. They never had role models. They were never encouraged to explore their emotions. Boys don't cry, suck it up. They had these messages, and even in media and everything, that were saying that. Or like when we were growing up, everyone was called gay all the time. And like that was said like super negatively if you showed any emotion at all. So I think that integration of oneself, I hope that that's kind of what we're seeing starting to develop as men are becoming more vulnerable. Yeah. And I think that women need to embrace that. There's so many women who are wanting that. And as I've learned and know through my work in Gottman and working with couples, emotional intelligence is a major, major piece in being able to have a happy, healthy relationship, because it makes you feel safe with that person. And it means that they have empathy for you and want to understand your side. And I think that sometimes there's women who they like the idea of that, they want that, and at the same time they want like the typical stoic man too. And there's a bit of evolution on both sides that needs to happen, where we can see that this can be really complementary, as it should be. Like that humans get to have the full totality range of emotion and not be limited to, just being one certain way, which I think is an old view of men and masculinity. And when you don't handle your trauma, when you don't know how to talk about things and process it, you project it or you numb it. So most of alcoholics, the majority are men. Alcohol is numbing. Alcohol numbs you. And that's just one example. But in what ways are we doing a great disservice to boys and men by promoting that it needs to be this one way, or saying that they can't have this full range of emotions?
Yeah. Well, and because stoicism in a lot of ways is artificial peace on the exterior, because if you want to truly have like the persona of stoicism, then that is an outward expression of inner peace. And the only way you can achieve inner peace is by going through like the healing process, and that requires vulnerability
and acceptance of those parts.
So if you want true masculinity by our cultural definition of stoic, then you're going to have to be vulnerable. You're going to have to process your feelings and lean into your feelings and feel your feelings, and being vulnerable doesn't require crying. You know what I mean? Like I don't know the last time I cried. I mean, it was this morning. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. No, it was actually when I was watching Titanic, it's so beautiful. No,
never let go.
I'm kidding. No, I hardly ever cry, but, it's just funny how that gets, attached to it. But another thought is like when you mention like women, they say these are nice things, they want a vulnerable man or whatever, but then at the end of the day they find themselves gravitating toward guys who suppress their feelings. And that's probably because like just daddy issues and how women are attracted to
I think there's other societal norms influence all of us. Yeah,
they watch too much Yellowstone, and
they probably watch too much Yellowstone.
Yeah, they want Kevin Costner. Yeah. Neither have I, but I plan to watch it. I'm binging The Office right now, as I alluded to earlier.
Do you think that being more vulnerable has also allowed you to have more empathy or be less judgmental of others?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
it's allowed me to see that there is more to the picture than what people are projecting. And then, so then when somebody is projecting something, I know that they're just guarded. And then if they want to talk to me, then I can kind of go, okay, well, let's really probe into your brain. And, and then you unearth all these, this really great insight into people, and you start to see the humanness and their human experience and their preciousness,
Yeah.
So,
I think, and all of that leads to, I don't know, in terms of relationship with others, which is a big part of being human. And when I say relationship, I'm never just meaning romantic relationships, but all relationships you're able to then have better communication, because you can identify how you feel and not just project or be passive aggressive, and conflict resolution. And you can build that trust as someone who's there and who's safe.
Yeah.
So I think that you've done a lot of really good work to develop those qualities.
Thank you.
I really love that we get to have a conversation about this, because it's I don't know. I feel like it can be sometimes like a hot button debate topic for people. it's still an idea that is a little bit uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for men and women.
Yeah.
For everyone.
Yeah, vulnerability is scary for just about everyone. But I mean, that's why we're like really pushing to create curious culture where it's like safe and encouraged. Like you can come with all your bad, all your good, and there's going to be empathy and no judgment.
I mean, that's really where like the name of our podcast is. We were coming up with it. I love that juxtaposition of delightfully dysfunctional.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me, it says like perfectly imperfect. I'm a work in progress.
Yeah.
It says like I can be a wonderful, wholehearted human and also be like looking at the areas that I need to adjust or self-reflect on.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's why I love our delightful human community, and I'm so grateful for everyone who listens and who connects with what we say. In this space, I mean, it feels like I'm just having a conversation with you, but I feel the connection to our listeners still.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful. So thank you for everyone who's ever shared the podcast, listened, and has been a participant on this experiment with us.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. Our name is great. It's better than the second place one that we were going to call it.
I forgot what the
Poo
second.
Poo Pee Pee.
Oh God.
Because that was the same
What?
like juxtaposition, but I feel like not as refined,
Not as refined.
I'm glad we didn't go with that one.
Oh my gosh.
So anyway,
I roll number one.
is that number one? Really?
No, it's
Okay.
not the first one. It's probably the 10th one in the course of this episode.
You said we have an advice
we
this
do
episode.
have an advice.
Should we roll into it?
We shall.
Okay.
Okay, let me pull it up here. This advice.
Oh, it's on your phone.
It's on my phone. So this was someone I know actually who wrote in, but they're an avid listener. So, hi, delightfully dysfunctional. I'm coaching my son's team this year, and I have a player who is very self-deprecating. They're a very good player, and before every practice and game, I try to talk about what we should focus on and what we have done well. No matter what I do, this one young player continues to be so extremely negative that they have said things like they want to quit, are a horrible player, and escalated to things like wanting to kill themselves. I had to talk with them one-on-one to try to uplift and remind them of several positive things that they are doing and how much he is valued on our team. It is extremely troubling, and although their teammates and players on other teams and other coaches also try to encourage and help, it only seems to make things worse. In a sense, it's starting to affect the other players on the team now as well. I've reached out to the program coordinator for assistance, but I'm curious if you have any additional guidance you can pass on to me, given your background working with younger generations. I would like to encourage everyone and continue working on improving the skills they already have throughout the season. Also, thank you both for your content. It brings a smile and light to my Tuesdays. Thank you, a fellow curious human.
I love it. Oh my gosh, the little tag at the end. Wait, was that a man or a woman?
This was a woman.
Okay.
Yeah.
They call themselves a curious human.
I love it. I love our delightfully curious humans out there.
Sorry,
it's just
but,
such a beautiful way to describe yourself,
yeah.
isn't it? I like it a lot.
But the subject matter though is not all that exciting.
No. And I believe that this the kiddos are probably like upper elementary.
Okay.
From what I know of this person too. So, wow. I mean, I did ask them earlier too if there were any details they knew about home life, and I believe that there are some distractions at home. So I think that they're in transitions going on. I very much feel like that plays a huge role in how kids behave outside of the home and what's going on. So it's difficult because from our curious human's perspective, there are things that are outside of your control.
Yeah.
When you're a teacher, when you're a coach, when you see that kind of stuff happening. I think the fact that people trying to check in or be more encouraging to this kiddo is eliciting more negativity. I mean, kids want attention, whether it's positive or negative. So I'm not sure if that plays a part in it, that like perhaps they're not getting as much attention at home right now. And therefore this is still a means for being seen. Like, at least you see me and can acknowledge me, even if it is, being found through the negativity. that's one, I don't know enough. That's a possibility. So I don't want to say that this kid is doing it for attention. It's a wondering or possibly a factor in it. I don't believe that they're just doing it for attention. Attention is a need. And sometimes we see that as, oh, they're just attention seeking. I'm saying it as like, you need oxygen and you need water and you need food and you also need attention. It is a need.
Yeah.
So if it's possible to check in with the family, if it's possible to, from a coaching perspective, I don't know what feels, I've never coached anything, nor am I someone who likes being coached because I'm really bad at sports and uncoordinated. So from a coaching perspective, I don't know how appropriate it is or comfortable to say like, maybe provide some community resources or share your concern to the parent.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts? Do you have thoughts on this one?
I'd say suck it up and be a man.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just kidding. No, yeah, everything that you said, I agree with because in my experience with kids, especially, normally if the way that they like exhibit themselves, I guess, is what is almost like their native language. That's that's how they learn how to communicate. So that particular kid probably is, I'm totally speculating, but was probably neglected in every way except when getting sympathy. So then, or that was the most effective way is it a boy?
It's a boy.
Okay.
Yeah.
For him to get attention, it was probably through, like complaining or,
at least in what the curious human is observing, like in this, window of time when they get to work with them and in this coaching setting, I think that's what they're noticing.
Yeah.
And,
so then in like a group setting, because I had a friend like this who, he felt like, I don't know, it's almost like he felt ignored and neglected by our friend group unless he was like talking about wanting to kill himself or something. So then that would always get him a lot of attention and we would give him sympathy. But then after a while, we just kind of were like, whatever, dude, like.
And so this is where I also feel like we need to treat people who say that and who are feeling that seriously too. So I would never want our delightful humans to think that I'm like brushing it under the rug when I say that like some of this is a reflection of the attention he may be getting. Again, I view that as a need, and I view that as in childhood anyways, which is different than seeking attention in adulthood. I see it too as a reason to cue in with the parents because these are concerning things. Yeah. And a lot of times we might view like, kids who are saying that isn't serious because how often do you hear of a kid committing suicide? But it does happen, and that's really sad. Yeah. There was an elementary age kid fairly locally to us that took their life within the last, when I heard about it, it was 7 years ago, so it could have happened, like, I'm sure something more locally has happened since too, sadly. And when I worked in the schools, there were kids as young as, honestly, kindergarten who would say that they wanted to kill themselves. But there's a different distinction in what I would notice and whether these are things, sadly, that the child had heard at home and like the context of the situation and when they would bring that up versus the kids who would, come down and want a one-on-one talk or even struggle to share it because it felt scary. Yeah. So some of what I'm saying is kind of like the context of the information that we've been given. So I think it should be definitely communicated to family and to the coordinator. I think that you need some additional resources and support here because there are concerning things being said. And when it comes to the rest of the team, I think that it's hard to know that it's affecting the other players too, but maybe try to keep encouraging the other players to just, people go through hard days and he's having a hard day. We're going to check in with you later, buddy. But right now this is what we're doing. And, we want to try and have a positive mindset and And maybe there's a way for the curious human to pull the kid aside if this hasn't happened, because I think that we all have a hesitancy. The average person has a hesitancy to know how to address suicide, and especially with a kid, right?
Yeah.
So to say, hey, I'm really worried, and that made me really sad when you said that you want to kill yourself. Is that like a real thought you've had? Is that a thought you've had like more than once? And why would you say that? Why are you feeling that way? And try to actually lean in and be a little bit more curious about it. At the same time, it's tricky because I do think, I guess, that's a role of a coach. If you're working with youth, unfortunately, this is mental health and feelings of suicide is something that can accompany that phase and that age. But to just really try to assess, and maybe at that point, like I've had people that I've worked with, and I ask that question, it's like, well, no, I don't really mean that. And I'm like, okay, so I'm really glad that's not really what you mean, because that'd be really scary and sad. But are you just saying that something didn't quite go the way you'd pictured? Because there can be that phase in childhood and youth where it's like, if something didn't go the way I envisioned it, it must be bad, or everything is terrible. And it's a bit of a perspective shift more so. So I would really want them to try to navigate a little bit more about where those things that are being said are coming from. Again, that's really difficult when you're having to like coach and pay attention to a whole team. Mm-hmm. So it's not a perfect answer. Yeah. It's some ideas that hopefully they could try. Yeah. And essentially, I really do think that some resources and help from people who are more capable of giving time, attention, and basically like therapy or some type of a resource for the family that would help. But yeah, it's hard when we hear scary things or negativity from tiny humans. I think as adults, we often think that childhood is like this really joyous time and it's so carefree, and that isn't always the case. Childhood also has a lot of uncertainty, and kids can feel a lot of really strong emotions that are overwhelming depending on what's going on in their life. And there's so much out of their control. Yeah,
most of your trauma comes in your childhood, sadly.
Yeah,
and
sadly.
And if that doesn't work, then just give them Benadryl.
Oh, gosh. Been a lot of eye rolls in this one from the bad jokes.
I was trying to figure out a joke to transition out of the advice into the closing.
And that was the one. I know, so I'm not. Oh, man. Well, thank you so much, Curious Human, for writing in and, trusting us to try and give you the best advice that we can.
Yeah.
And we just want to continue promoting that we are making vulnerability cool again. And
not again, it's never really been cool, but we're just making vulnerability cool.
Period. Yeah. Right. Yes. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. It's a joy to get to spend this time with all of you. Yeah. And please tune in, like, subscribe, share with a friend. Let them know about the wacky shenanigans happening on Delightfully Dysfunctional.
Yeah. And join us for our social media cleanse.
Yes. Listen to the social media cleanse episode. And we're gonna be continuing on that path. So please stay tuned.
Faux show.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. That was amazing, that outro.